So here we are in lecture 17, the final week of Mind and Reality. Very sad for me that it's nearly over, but well done for making it so far into this course. I have to tell you that at the beginning I was full of doubts about you, how you would perform, doubts about me. I've been doing lecturing for a while, but never online. And I've got to tell you that it's been a real privilege to be your lecturer on this course. It's been a real privilege. So what I want to do today is to consider the topic of revision and assessments in the first part of this lecture before going on to some substance, some extensions in the latter part of the lecture. And I think of the extensions as actually me guiding you through the process of some revision. But let me start with these general tips about how to revise. So I've broken it into three parts. This is revision in general, then we'll look at a little bit about assessments, and then we'll also consider specific topics in a third section. So take revision in general. First question, how much of the learning have you already done for this course? Where do you think you are? Do you think, we're in the final week, you've been through the lectures, you've done weekly writing tasks, you've done a take-home exam that was worth 20%. So you've come a long way, no doubt about it. But the truth is that you've only done about half of the learning that you really ought to do. You've only done about half of the learning that you really ought to do. Why do I say that? Because the revision is actually the other half. Revision is not just a matter of kind of checking that you know stuff, memorizing a few things. Revision is the process of research by which you build on what you've done during this term and turn that into a substantial body of knowledge. Now, don't get me wrong here. Some people are going to be in a hurry. Sorry, I should say here. Some people are going to be in a hurry. And the truth is, look, you can get into the final assessment and you will probably pass on the basis of having done what you've done so far. The second half is really a matter of intellectual fulfillment and development rather than necessarily maximizing your score in an exam. I'm sure your score in an exam will be okay if you just followed through the lectures and done the weekly writing tasks and so on, right? So I don't want to alarm anybody here. I don't want to put a lot of pressure on anybody here. What I'm telling you is really my experience as a learner. I've been learning for a while. My experience as a learner is that after you've been through the lectures and everything, you're about halfway there. If you're really in the process of learning. So what is this revision business? What is the second half? Well, the first thing is consolidation. Where are the things that I'm uncertain about? Is there a definition that I don't quite get? I'm looking at my notes. There's a big hole. I fell asleep at some point and so on and so forth. So there's quite a bit of consolidation here. That can be very important. Filling in some details, asking questions. There'll be other people, hopefully, that you've been watching these lectures with or doing some of the other work with. You've met them in the seminars and so on. And that will be part of it as well, asking questions to consolidate your knowledge. The second part of revision, there are three parts. The second part, in my view, is integration. Now, this is very important. So what I'm trying to do on the course is to break things into fairly small sections. We've got the 7 questions that have provided structure, and I've taken them independently so that someone who missed the first 2 questions would be okay with the third and fourth questions. But actually, and each of those questions have been broken down into fairly small parts. But actually there are supposed to be connections between the questions, and also some of the parts associated with one question are supposed to have application with other questions as well. So some of the work of revision here is integration, making connections between the questions. And the final thing is extension. So here you're doing some independent research to build on things that you might have picked up in the lectures, nagging questions that you have, things where you're thinking to yourself, well, Steve isn't right about that. I'm not sure what the truth is, but Steve is wrong, right? Time for some research, time for an extension. And I'll talk about that later in a later section with respect to specific topics. So you can see what I mean by each of these things. Now, there's one thing I haven't mentioned so far, which I discourage, and this is memorizing things. If you were going to sit in a traditional exam, in an exam hall where you get 2 hours to answer 2 questions, memorizing things would be important. But thankfully this year, that isn't going to happen. I can't tell you what is going to happen because I don't know, but there's no need to memorize. And that is a wonderful thing, because I'm pretty sure your memories are basically okay, and if they're not, that's not really something for me to worry about as a philosopher. right? It may be worrying for you, you should go and see a GP. It's not worrying for me as a philosopher. So what's revision? Consolidation, integration, extension. These three things. That's what revision is. You're not trying to memorize things. You're trying to learn in the fullest sense. Now, the most important thing, of course, is that you enjoy revising. It can seem pretty difficult for a lot of people, including myself actually. Reading philosophy, writing philosophy, that involves pain. It's quite a painful thing to do. That's why I like it when you write briefly rather than at great length. It's very painful for me to read what you've written, just as it's painful for me to read what Descartes or Parfit has written on personal identity. So how is it that I could enjoy revising? Well, when I'm revising, I'm very selective. I'm revising the topics that most interest me. I'm considering the issues that most interest me. And I'm reading the stuff that I find most absorbing, well written, concise, and all the rest of it. So I'm trying to get the maximum pleasure for the minimum pain in my revision. That's how I'm doing it. And I find it very important, because if I'm not enjoying it, the truth is that I probably won't really be doing it properly anyway. So I hope that you also, not easy thing to say, but I hope that you will find a way to enjoy the revision.